Wanlockhead, 1531 feet, higher than any village in the Highlands. This wee street is called Goudskers Raw, Gold Scars Row, and down there you can see the scars where the gold was found. I'm going in here to the Wanlock Museum Trust to speak to Jeff Downs Rose. Hello, hello.
Hello.
Jeff Downs Rose. Well, you're a mining man from the Midlands, a coal mining man, and
Yes.
yet here in Wanlockhead you've set up this wee museum covering pretty well every aspect of lead mining. How did that come about?
Well, the story goes back about 10 years when an engineering friend of myself became interested in the unusual technology of the beam engine down the valley. And our interest has developed out from that, developing into the history of the mines and the technology that's been associated with it.
Collecting all the bits you could find.
We have indeed. These are sort of spin-off of the industrial archaeology that has been undertaken here.
So you've spent years of work on this?
Yes.
How many years?
Oh, 8 years.
8 years. And when was the museum opened?
2 years ago. We reached a point where with so much by way of relics and physical remains that we had to find a place, A, to store them and B, to display them to the public.
And then you started up a mining trail through the village so that people could see the mines and understand what they were all about.
Yes, yes. What we're seeing here are the smaller relics, and outdoors we're developing an open-air industrial museum where people can see the mine heads and the pumping engines and the water system and so on.
Well, could I tap your brains, have a look around the museum, and then we'll walk around the mining trail?
Surely.
Great.
Well, the continuing problem in this mining valley was that of the disposal of the water in the mines. And something like 100 tonnes of water would have to be pumped up for every tonne of lead ore. So we see here the beam engine. On the left-hand end of the beam, you'll see a rod going down to the concrete cap, which covers the mine shaft. And this was the business end of the engine. It pumped the water out of the shaft. At the other end of the beam, we see what we call a steeple, down which descended a huge wooden bucket. This bucket was filled with water from the hillside, and the weight of the water in the bucket pulled the beam down and thereby lifted the pump at the other end.
How did the water get into the bucket?
It was conducted along the hillsides, long distances, through lathes and clay pipes. Here are specimens of lead ore in the vein. The shiny material is the galena, the ore of lead. Now that had to be crushed out of the rock and broken down into small pieces and put through the smelting hearths. In the smelting hearths, the smelted lead was run into bar moulds of this kind and formed into bars weighing over 100 weight, about 3 feet in length. The lead from Wanlockhead and Lead Hills was mainly shipped away via Leithport to the Low Countries. Some of it was used in Scotland, and artefacts of these kinds were the products.
Lead gutter and this ornamental piece in the end of a building, presumably.
Yes, the 18th and 19th centuries were periods when lead was used in great quantities for ornamentation as well as for more mundane things like plumbing.
And this relief map here is showing the valley.
This shows the extent of the valley, something like over 1.5 miles in length. The veins cross the valley almost at right angles. The later workings consisted of shaft mining, which had offset from them long galleries. And above and below the galleries, the lead was worked up and down through the course of the vein.
And how deep were these mines?
Well, the last one to work at Glencreef went down 600 feet below sea level, and the shaft itself head is 1,100 feet above sea level, so a depth of 1,600 to 1,700 feet.
And Jeff, does the mining trail actually begin here then?
Yes, it begins at the museum and goes down that road. And you'll be able to see as we go down there some of the men employed on job creation who are conserving some of the remains of the buildings.
Gee, that's an imaginative idea.
Uh-huh. Well, you better have one of these, Tom, as we're going down a mine as well.
Oh, good. Look forward to it.
Oh. This is the Wanlock burn, Tom, where a good deal of gold was washed in the old days. Right in front of us is the heap and remains of the Glencreef mine, the very deep mine that worked until the mine's closed. And the mine we're going into is just over to our right, Locknell mine.
In that wee place there?
That's right, under that hill.
So there's a big gallery goes right under the village there?
Yes, right into the Dod Hill, and it goes into there for about half a mile. And the workings go down several hundred feet. This is the Locknell drift mine, Tom, and it was reopened last year using a couple of old coal miners from Sanker to do the timbering for us. Now you better have a pair of Wellingtons on. We've got some inside here, so slash it.
Well, I see you keep your head down here.
To the right here, Tom. Well, Tom, this is what we came in to see. Here we can see a section of the vein cut out by the miners as they rose on the vein in search of the lead. The vein itself occupies the full width of the cutting that we can see, and the gleaner itself would take up little less than a finger width in this vein. Other minerals would be in it, calcites and pyrites and so on. The miners were not interested in that, simply in the lead ore.
How about lighting? It'd be pretty dark in here.
Yes, in the early days the only means of illumination were candles, and as adequate ventilation was a problem, the miners had to retreat from the workings when the oxygen wasn't sufficient to light the candle.
So when the candle flickered out, it was time
That
they
was
were
their
out.
cue to get out, yes.
How deep are we now?
We're about 200 feet under the Wanlockhead Dod Hill, and the workings here go right under the Dod and descend to a depth of about 800 feet at the deepest. And those workings were dug out in the early part of the 19th century, between 1800 and 1830, and very good lead ore was got out at depth.
So it'd be very, very hard wearing work for the
Very
miners.
hard work, indeed.
And barrowing all that stuff down these
Yes,
narrow passages.
yes, yes.
I think we'll creep by.
Very manpower intensive.